Thanks for tuning in. Tonight we have a special match between two of the cheesiest players in the Machine vs. Man Team League. The gauntlet has been thrown, and the human cheese king CudleZerg is ready to take on the bot cheese king Coxe to determine who is the king of cheese for the league. Whose reign will start today? Only one way to find out. Let's get to the games. And starting this first game out in this King of Cheese series, we have Coxe in the top left and CudleZerg in the top right. Starting out the match on Circuit Breaker. Looks like we do have a 5th drone made for CudleZerg. However, no drones made for Coxe. In fact, pre-positioning that drone. Looks like we're going to get right into it, folks. Hardly any time at all for a build-up. Got a spawning pool down for Coxe, going for that 4 pool. Meanwhile, CudleZerg opting for a 5 pool this game. Throwing that down in front of his gas. Both overlords are also going to scout each player on the first try, basically allowing each of the players to know exactly where the other one is, which is very important in these early pool builds like these. Won't have to sacrifice a drone to scout. Though, sending one out just in case. Meanwhile, overlords going for that high five. High five. Pool, about 100 HP for finish for CudleZerg. Is finished for Coxe. We do have an initial round of Zerglings almost done. Meanwhile, an initial round for CudleZerg just starting. Has created an overlord though. Meanwhile, drone coming up to scout out everything that's going on. So we got the first wave of Zerglings taking the field for Chris, heading and making their way. Meanwhile, these lings spawn just as this drone walks up, immediately killing it off, and now rushing down to get into position to try to maybe rush their own, or maybe stop these other lings from coming in. In fact, kind of pulling back for now. Is able to get a nice concave at this edge of the ramp. Annihilating Chris's drones, or excuse me, Chris's lings as they come across. And Chris, though, able to kind of pick off 2 lings there pretty quick. Isn't able to get a 3rd, but that one is pretty low. In fact, immediately killing it with some additional ling reinforcements moving up. Currently, these lings are just kind of trading with each other. CudleZerg deciding to run his lings back, try and group up and get superior numbers. Meanwhile, Coxe going full-on aggression. Just pushing forward with all of the lings as soon as they hatch, not even grouping up. Meanwhile, CudleZerg, 7 lings now, all grouped up. Flanking these lings as they come up, is going to lose 1. However, does have superior numbers compared to the lings that he should be running into. Oh, and actually his unit's kind of bugging out there and just realizing it and grouping them back up. Is going to let these new reinforcements come in and deal with these lings as they come around and try and juke around that group. And this initial pack kills off the next 2 ling reinforcements. Unfortunately, Chris, unless he starts grouping his lings up, will probably lose this game shortly, as this flood of lings is, although trading very decently, CudleZerg is quickly starting to gain an overwhelming numbers advantage. And 2 lings popping out at a time is not going to save Chris. Is trying to make a sunken, however, CudleZerg able to get on top of that sunken before it's even started morphing. Chris, though, running up, immediately one-shotting the red HP ling. However, now getting his drones caught by the other lings that are still healthy. And one last drone popping out for Chris. Is going to be able to do anything with it? Unfortunately, no. And with that, the first game in the series for this King of Cheese event match goes to CudleZerg. GG. Starting the second game out on Roadrunner now, we have Coxe spawning as the white Zerg at roughly the 7 o'clock position. And then we have CudleZerg, the red Zerg, spawning in roughly the 9 o'clock position. Looks like he did, by muscle memory, decided to create a drone there and decided to cancel it. Get his money back. Looks like he is also opting, CudleZerg, for a 4-pool this game. Meanwhile, Coxe also going for a 4-pool. Has his pool down almost immediately. Roughly 20 seconds or so before CudleZerg gets his down. However, CudleZerg opting to place his in more of a SimCity position. And again, these overlords will immediately scout each other out. Chris, pool about halfway finished. CudleZerg, not far behind, but behind. Meanwhile, overlords going for, again, the high five as they cross each other. And sending out a drone, actually making a 5th drone while making that pool. A little different from last game. Now opting to send it out for a scout. However, his overlord also on the right path. CudleZerg also opting to make another drone, for 5th drone after the pool. Is also making an overlord. Meanwhile, though, Chris has the first wave of lings ready to come out. We'll just have to see if he's able to get up to CudleZerg's base and do any damage before his lings pop out. Unfortunately, looking unlikely, as they are coming out one at a time. They are slowly coming out. And catching that drone, immediately killing it off. Meanwhile, Chris's lings making its way across the middle. Going up. It's just a matter of time until it breaches CudleZerg's base. However, CudleZerg only has 4 lings. Technically, Chris has the ling advantage right now. Oh. Luckily, last little bit of ling popping out. And engaging. More lings popping out. Tipping the ling favor to CudleZerg. And unfortunately, a similar situation as game 1. CudleZerg opting to get a massive amount of lings while these reinforcements come in one at a time. Or a group at a time. And killing them off. CudleZerg making a move. Is able to catch the next wave of reinforcements. Meanwhile, Chris, still just pumping lings. Has not made any sunkens or anything. In fact, this pair of lings getting around the main pack. However, additional reinforcements popping out will probably clean these up. Almost able to get in there and potentially do a lot of damage, as those lings could have killed off a drone or two, tipping the drone favor in Chris's advantage. Got about 5 lings, 2 hurt, 3 healthy. CudleZerg, though, making his way up. Chris now deciding to throw down a creep colony, doing his best to try to survive, but unfortunately looking like it's going to end up just like the last game. CudleZerg going around is going to take out these drones. And unfortunately with that, Chris loses game 2, putting CudleZerg up 2-0 in this series. And starting game 3 on Tau Cross, we have Coxe as the red Zerg spawning in the 2 o'clock position. And CudleZerg as the blue Zerg spawning in the 5 o'clock position. Again, both overlords on the correct path to scout each other out. 3 games in a row now. Chris opting for a 4-pool again. CudleZerg making drones. Does have 5, does have a 6th popping out. Chris, though, pool going down. CudleZerg also opting for his pool down now, too. About a 200 HP difference in the timing of the pool. Should be able to overcome any timing differences, though, with the distances between bases. And again, both Overlords going for a high five as they cross each other to scout everything out. CudleZerg sending out a drone himself. Meanwhile, Chris also sending out a drone. Pool, about 600 HP. Just finished for Chris. Do have some lings morphing. And this drone just barely going around. Not being seen by Chris's drone. Is kind of scouting in a odd pattern. Is going to see these lings moving out and actually juking the drone around to hide it. Seeing some more lings coming down. Now opting to run behind them. Meanwhile, does have a batch of his own lings out. CudleZerg does. Kills off Chris's scouting drone. And these two lings catching and hitting on this drone just a little bit. However, opting to just run on, continue to the CudleZerg's base. And again, opting to just ignore the drone. What is CudleZerg trying to do with this? And actually trying to go for a sunken rush. Immediately, Chris pulling back two of the lings that just hatched. And two more lings going to work on it. Will probably keep this from being turned into a sunken. However, CudleZerg trying to do something crazy. Meanwhile, also fighting with his own lings down in his natural. Pushing them back. Unfortunately, with those 4 lings having to be pulled back to deal with that sunken, there was a little bit of a ling disparity. CudleZerg had the bigger ling count than Chris did. And was able to capitalize that. However, got about 6 lings moving out. And about 9 lings for CudleZerg. 2 more about to hatch though. We'll push that more in CudleZerg's favor. Is again opting to group up his lings and wait for a massive counter push. And again catching them as they went in single file. Able to get a nice vector concave. And catching the reinforcements again. Sending a drone as well. Upset seemingly that Chris was able to block his sunken rush. Says, I'm going to send one more and do it anyways again. But I'm going to send it with my lings. Chris, though, does have a sunken made. Hasn't started, as I say that, has just started morphing it to an actual sunken. Unfortunately, does lose his drones. And immediately, these lings going to work on this sunken. Will be able to make in time, but only getting 1 attack off before dying. And CudleZerg also opting to make a sunken in the main. And with that, GG. And potentially game point here. We are starting to match out on Andromeda. CudleZerg as the blue Zerg in the top left. Meanwhile, Chris, purple Zerg, top right. Again, 4 games in a row now, folks. 4 games. Both players able to scout each other out. First try. Meanwhile, CudleZerg seemingly opting for a 5 pool. Chris sticking with the 4 pool strategy. Is throwing down his pool now. Meanwhile, CudleZerg just about to throw down his. Chris opting to make the 5th drone again this time. Pool about 60% done. Meanwhile, CudleZerg about 50% done now. Pool just a little bit behind, but even drone counts. Chris, though, opting to send it to scout out. So while they do have equal drone counts, CudleZerg does actually have 1 more drone mining. And again, both overlords crossing each other as they path to each other's main base. Meanwhile, Chris opting to send the drone after seeing the overlord to the correct location to get a full scout before the overlord can arrive. CudleZerg opting to send his second overlord down to the natural to look out for the lings. Does have his own batch made. Meanwhile, Chris has his batch just created and making its way across the map. Chris able to start harassing some of these drones, but now getting unfortunately pushed right into the lings as they spawn and immediately getting picked off. CudleZerg playing a little more defensive so far with his lings, but now opting to go out and attack. And actually catching Chris's lings just perfectly on this ramp. Able to get him a little divided by running around the terrain. And all of a sudden again, CudleZerg in the lead, able to push Chris's lings all the way back. Has only lost one ling so far, 2 lings. Meanwhile, reinforcements able to come in and pick off these lings that were able to get around the main group, and the main group is able to kill off the next wave. Chris, unfortunately, looking in a very, very, very bad situation, as these lings from CudleZerg are able to push immediately up to the ramp, and he doesn't even have a creep colony made. Not that that's saved him so far this series, but CudleZerg instantly on these drones now. Chris does have enough for either one more drone or more lings. However, CudleZerg opting to run around with his lings, trying to deny Chris any mining time. Waiting for more reinforcements now that they're here, able to take out those lings. And now these drones are all by themselves, unable to return that minerals just yet. Able to get it, and then one more ling or drone is about to pop out. However, CudleZerg is about to take this series 4-0 and be the king of cheese. And with that, CudleZerg crowned the king of cheese, the event match winner. He is the king of cheese for the Machine vs. Man Team League. We want to thank you for tuning in, and this is a little bit different compared to how we do our normal casts, but we hope to see you for the start of round 3 tomorrow night, and other than that, have a good night.